This presentation is a discourse analysis of a brochure published by the Australian Government Department of Health. The brochure is intended to encourage people to reduce risks of the spread of influenza. A discourse analysis examines a formal communication such as the brochure. It looks not only at its superficial content but also its use of language relevant to the social, political and cultural context that defines the genre in which it is created and used. Here, the target audience for the communication is the general public who need to be educated about the subject. This presentation will focus on how the communication is or is not likely to be effective to shape the reader's future actions. To make sense of the brochure, it will be necessary to look at its layout and design, and the selection of language as well as the actual content. This brochure has effective headings which are in bold typeface in a different colour, which makes it stand out from the general text. Headings are phrased as personal questions directed to the reader which grab attention because they seem to be highly relevant to the reader. For example, why should I worry about the flu, and what are the symptoms of influenza? This style of heading invites the reader to look at the detail because it seems to be directed at them personally. This brochure breaks out each symptom of influenza into a separate bullet point so that it stands out. Each bullet point is widely spaced from the others, creating a maximum impact for the reader. This brochure sometimes uses short and sharp sentences such as this. Unfortunately, this style is not maintained throughout the brochure. In answering the question, "Why should I be concerned?" the following sentence appears. This is a more formal style that is not as easy for the reader to understand because the sentence is long with a number of clauses within it. This suggests that the brochure is likely to have been the outcome of work by a number of different authors. The longer answer is likely to have been formulated by a medically qualified person because it is addressing a medical question. Regrettably, its language structure is too complex. This brochure contains attention-grabbing graphics. These pictures of the individual blowing his nose and frowning with a thermometer in his mouth and head on a pillow attract sympathy and empathy. The background color schemes of blue and orange make them stand out. These images inform the reader about the subject matter of the brochure before any word is read. They provide emphasis that helps comprehension and is likely to improve recollection of the brochure and its messages. Advice on how to avoid spreading influenza is also supported by crisp, clean images that are tightly connected to the recommendations within the text. For the most part, guidance is given in positive language rather than negative commands. For example, cover your mouth and nose when you sneeze or cough and wash your hands. Negative suggestions such as don't share personal items are minimized. Positive messaging is more likely to get through to the reader. Choice of words is another factor when testing the effectiveness of a communication. This is especially important when communicating about technical subjects to people who need to be educated about them. Simpler words of Germanic origin should be preferred over words of Latin or French origin. There are good examples in this brochure because of its direct style, such as always wash your hands after you have been to the toilet. Although only a crude guide, the use of shorter words can be an indicator of more direct communication. This brochure selects comparatively straightforward language. For example, when you cough or sneeze, you should turn away from other people. Use of the passive voice can also be confusing and complex for the reader. This brochure succeeds in the use of the active voice, often using the imperative, that is, commands. For example, you should regularly clean surfaces. This is much more direct than a statement such as, surfaces should be kept clean at all times. In conclusion, on the whole, this brochure is a good example of the use of plain English techniques for effective communication on the subject of reducing influenza risks.